When newlyweds, Emily and Mark first saw the abandoned building on the edge of town, they were captivated. The towering, ivy-covered structure had been a psychiatric hospital, closed down for decades, standing silent with its own hidden secrets. They saw potential in the place, a grand hotel that would draw curious tourists from miles away. The renovation took months of hard work, the couple pouring their hearts and every penny they had into the transformation. They chose to preserve some of the building's original features, like the arched doorways and ornate wooden fixtures, giving it a vintage, slightly eerie charm. Despite rumors of the building's unsettling past, Emily brushed off any talk of ghosts or tragedies. The past, she told herself, was just that, past. But as the opening day approached, strange occurrences began to creep into their otherwise blissful routine. Doors opened and closed on their own, and cold drafts snaked through the halls, though every window was tightly shut. Emily noticed dark stains in some of the rooms that wouldn't come clean, no matter how hard she scrubbed. One night, as they were preparing the last room, Room 13, a room they'd planned to keep locked and unused due to extensive structural damage, a strange sensation washed over Emily. The room's walls seemed to hum, a low, almost indiscernible vibration, as if the place itself were breathing. "Let's just leave this one," Mark suggested, feeling the chill too. Relieved, Emily agreed, locking Room 13 and vowing to keep it off limits. Their grand opening finally arrived, and their first guest, a quiet man named Mr. Reardon, checked in. He was tall, gaunt, and had a strange, unsettling air about him, but the couple chalked it up to nervousness. Perhaps he was one of those odd, ghost-hunting types who'd come looking for thrills. That night, they heard footsteps down the halls. The steps were slow, dragging, a rhythmic thud, thud, as if someone were pacing with something heavy in tow. Mark assumed it was Mr. Reardon exploring, but when he checked the hallway, it was empty save for the faint sound of humming, an eerie, tuneless melody. In the morning, the guest was gone. His bed was untouched, the room seemingly never slept in. But a strange note had been left on the bedside table, scribbled in frantic handwriting. "I am not alone. Room 13. Do not open." When Emily saw the note, she froze. Against their better judgment, she and Mark ventured to Room 13, the key shaking in her hand as she unlocked the door. The air inside was frigid, thick with an unnatural silence. Dust swirled in the dim light, and there, in the center of the room, was an old iron bed frame, one they hadn't put there, one they'd never seen before. The mattress was filthy, stained with something dark and sticky, and the walls were lined with deep scratches, as though someone had clawed at them in desperation. But the worst was yet to come. As Emily turned to leave, she caught a glimpse of herself in the cracked mirror on the far wall. Only, it wasn't her. Her reflection wore the same clothes, the same face, but her eyes were wild, pleading, and her mouth formed silent words. "Help me." She stumbled back, gasping, turned to Mark. "Did you see that?" But he only looked at her, his eyes hollow, his face drained of color. "There's someone else here," he whispered. "She's watching us." That night they decided to leave, to abandon the hotel project entirely. But when they tried to leave the property, the car stalled, refusing to start. As they returned to the building, they felt this deep feeling of dread, as if unseen eyes were following them. Room 13's door was open. A figure stood in the doorway, a woman in a long, pale gown, her eyes dark voids, her mouth twisted into a terrible, knowing smile. She beckoned them forward, her figure flickering like an old, damaged film. Then they heard the same humming filling the halls, louder and louder, like the echo of 100 restless souls. The next morning, the townsfolk found the hotel silent, deserted. There was no sign of Emily or Mark, save for 2 names etched onto the door of Room 13, as if they'd always been there. Now, Room 13 stands open, waiting, an invitation to any who dare enter. And late at night, some say you can still hear the soft, sorrowful hum drifting through the halls like a lullaby for lost souls.